You're watching PBS.
COVID-19 was this terrible new foe, a new disease, and we knew absolutely nothing about how to fight it. We had individuals who were going to be sick. We would barely know if they actually had the disease. And once they were really ill, what are the best ways to treat them? We had no information to guide us.
So as a hospital epidemiologist, one of my jobs has always been to monitor the worldwide situation for infectious outbreaks. And I started to monitor COVID-19 since they reported the first cases in China. Once it became apparent that it was going to be here, it was very important to activate our command center to have a structure around our response. So we had been preparing for a pandemic since I got here in 2002. We've actually tested our plan several times with SARS, Ebola, H1N1, avian flu. We were just needing to adapt our plan and make it appropriate to this particular virus and mode of transmission.
The outbreak in Houston was concerning because of the size and the density of our city. We're the third largest population in the United States. We're known for incredible events such as a rodeo, and you could set off a forest fire with just a very small spark here.
As new information becomes apparent, we're able to change the way we isolate patients, change the way we protect our healthcare workers, change the way we treat patients, and it became very apparent that we needed to have very detailed cleaning procedures. It is very, very fortunate that this virus is susceptible to all common disinfectants. We just need to make sure that things were being cleaned very thoroughly. We have checklists. We have special crews that were doing around-the-clock cleaning of high-touch surfaces like door handles, elevator buttons, handrails, etc. Flexibility is sort of our daily motto.
It became clear that the earlier we could reach these patients, the better their chances were going to be that they would make it alive out of the hospital. How do we identify these patients sooner, and how do we actually get the right personnel to these patients? Whether it's either bringing the patient to the ICU or even the way it evolved was actually how do we take the ICU to those patients? So the rapid response unit was basically created of kind of these superstar, critically care trained nurses. We've even dressed them in red scrubs so that they're easily identifiable anywhere in the hospital.
We are just like an emergency responder inside the hospital.
It takes time sometimes for the doctors to get to bedside and for an ICU bed to become available, and then to transfer that patient to the ICU bed. During that time, the patient could deteriorate quickly. We have certain protocols in place that we can actually initiate. We can do a lot of medications at bedside that the regular nurses may not be able to start or to initiate.
They get those phone calls and they're able to act and respond immediately to help triage those patients, to understand how sick are they, where do they need to go, and what are the interventions and phone calls that I need to make to get the right team members here to take care of these patients. They're a lifeline for the patients for sure, there's no doubt about that.
Early on, as we were seeking treatments for this disease and there were no drugs available, we realized that convalescent plasma was now being used throughout the world, and the early use was extremely promising.
It became evident that that might be something we needed to try. We needed to look at people who'd recovered, who might have those antibodies. We could try this in patients who were actively infected in the hospital because they had no other options in the very beginning. So convalescent plasma is plasma that we collect from a donor who has recovered from a disease. And in this case, that disease is COVID-19. The donor has to be otherwise generally well and healthy, and we collect that plasma in the same way that we would collect any blood product from a normal donor. The idea being that we want those antibodies that that donor has developed due to the infection. The idea we're going to give it to a patient who's actively infected to help them recover from the disease.
Convalescent plasma has been used for over 100 years. It was used in the Spanish flu. And early on, we knew that this would be one of the few weapons we would have in this terrible war. We sought emergency approval from the FDA to use convalescent plasma on individuals. We developed a system for collecting convalescent plasma in partnership with our local regional blood collection centers. We put this program together in the span of a week and a half. This system brought convalescent plasma to over 1,500 patients in the Memorial Hermann Health System.
Definitely, this is a generational event that has changed the world as we know it. The things we know and don't know about this virus change almost on a weekly basis. What we know for a fact is that the protocols we're using work against COVID. If we work together, we're going to get this outbreak under control. And now we have an extra tool, which are vaccines, that really are the light at the end of the tunnel. And this is the fifth tool that will help us get back to normal.
This is Houston Public Media, KUHT Houston.